Welcome, guys, for those joining. We will be starting at 7, so thank you guys for being here. Also, candidates, we are live on Facebook, so if you guys want to share the post, you guys are free to do so as well. Okay, we'll be starting in just about a minute. So if you guys want to, make sure you guys are sharing out in your groups and making sure you guys people are in attendance for this. Okay, so we can go ahead and get started now that it's 7 o'clock. Thank you guys, everyone that's coming. Welcome to the 2021 SGA Presidential Debate hosted by the Northerner live on Facebook. And so my name is Josh Kelly. I am the managing editor of the Northerner and the host for tonight's debate. So before we start, I just want to get you guys familiar with how it's going to go. Each slate will be able to have their opening statement, and then they will also have their closing statement when we're done, and then we'll go. But in between then, we will have some time for all of our candidates to speak about answer some questions that will be answered. And so if you have any questions that you would like to ask, feel free to message us on the Northerner on Facebook, and we will get them to you. And so we will be here. We do plan to be here for a 2-hour slot. And so be sure you guys are tuned in and ready. So now we can start, and the candidates can introduce themselves. We will start with alphabetical. So Aaliyah and Chris, you guys can start.
Thank you. My name is Aaliyah Cannon.
And my name is Chris Rote.
and we are running to be your 2021-2022 presidential candidates for the Student Government Association. Now, we want to talk to you about our platform, which is?
Our platform is amplifying the unheard to be understood.
Now, these aren't just words we're throwing at you so you can vote for us, but they're words. They have meanings behind them because people advocate for themselves and put their voices out into the open, but sometimes they are not put into the rooms or in the right platforms where they can push for change and where they can be changed. And when those voices are put there, are they really understood? And if they're not understood, no change can happen. So we want to make sure that your voice is amplified and understood.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. And now we can move on to our next candidates, Jackson and Rebecca.
Hello, everyone. We first wanted to thank everyone in attendance for being here, and thank you to the Northerner for hosting us. It's awesome we're able to do this. So my name is Jackson Coates.
And I'm Rebecca Knoll.
And we have 5 main pillars of our campaign that it's really based on. And those are expanding SGA to all students, increasing student access to resources, building a service community on campus, tackling COVID relief next year on campus, and also just increasing sustainability at NKU.
For each of these 5 pillars, we have specific plans that we want to enact during our time in office. And we hope that you stick with us tonight so we can tell you more about our plan to make SGA every student's government.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. And as I said, for those viewing, feel free to leave comments below or message us, and we will definitely go through and pick those up and ask those later in the event. But as for now, we do have these questions provided by the Northerner. So we will start with Cannon Rope for the first one. Which of your pillars and your values do you plan to implement first as you enter these positions?
So the pillar that we plan to implement first, well, it's not a pillar, it's a plan, which is the transparency, integrity, and accountability, because we want to make sure that we set a strong foundation and create a legacy for generations to come. Therefore, we want to make sure you all are aware that we will follow through on our platforms, and this will be an open and safe environment. SGA will become a family and it will become a bond. And not only that, we don't need you to come to our office, but we want to come to you. We want to hear your concerns, and we want to make sure that your voice is amplified and heard.
Yeah, to add on to that, accountability, transparency, and integrity are 3 of the most important traits of any organization and are the only pillars that can hold an organization up and keep it from crumbling. So therefore, allowing us to go in and bring these pillars to SGA, which is something that has been very lacking in the organization, can really change the culture and make it accessible to every student, regardless of background.
Thank you. Thank you. Moving on, this first question we have for Coates and Knoll. Which of your 5 pillars you guys have mentioned do you guys plan to work on first when should you be elected?
Yeah, so the first one we want to work on is the first one listed is the first one we present, is making sure SGA is expanded to be available to all students. And we have 3 things specifically that we want to implement to get this done. The first is having a suggestion box on the front page of nku.edu. We currently do have a suggestion box, but it's seldom used because it's buried way back in the SGA portion of the website. We think it'd be really effective to put that right on the front page, because while we can't have 14,000 seats in the Senate in SGA, what we can do is have a place where 14,000 students can go and voice their concerns, give suggestions for a new class. If they're having problems with a professor, go and drop it in the box. Maybe they see a need for maintenance somewhere. It can be anonymous or not, but that's something we would really like to see implemented as a first step of expanding SGA. Also, in tandem with that is just increasing collaboration between organizations in SGA. For example, if we're putting on an event that an organization or group has expertise in or is specifically affected by this event, we want to partner with them to make sure we're putting on the most effective event possible. And those are just 2 of the things that we think immediately we can implement to really kind of make sure SGA is serving every student.
And then so along with both of those things that Jackson mentioned, another thing that we want to add when we try to expand SGA is the presence of representatives during SGA meetings. And this could be members of specific organizations, different groups on campus, or just individuals themselves. We want to set aside a time before meeting where people can come and talk with SGA eBoard and voice any concerns that they do have, and just allow these people an opportunity and a space to get their voices heard. And this will be used in tandem with the suggestion box so that people who aren't able to come in person can still get their message out there.
Thank you. So we're moving on to the second question. This will be for Aaliyah Cannon. So as current regional coordinator for Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated, president of the Rho Chi chapter, and president of the National Pan-Hellenic Council, how do you plan to balance your responsibilities while serving as student regent and president of SGA should you be elected?
Of course, that was a great question. Thank you. So I learned from a very important person in my life that sometimes people can carry the weight of a table, and sometimes people can carry the weight of a tray. I never put my limitations on anyone else because I know I have endured so much and I can carry so much weight. Not only will I be stepping down from National Pan-Hellenic Council president, but I am very good with my organization skills and making sure I plan accordingly. I would not have applied for this position or be the servant leader I am today if I was not ready to make a change and know that I can make that change and be the best person I need to be for the students and for our people.
Thank you. Moving on, next question will be for Jackson Coates. Kind of a similar question. As a member of the Division I track team on campus, how do you plan to balance your athletic schedule while serving as student regent and president of SGA should you be elected?
Definitely. So kind of similar question, similar answer. It's about being able to balance. And this is something that I was well aware of time commitments of both things when I started running, and am still aware. And the things don't conflict that much. And so with, having spent 3 years at the university learning to manage my time, I'm confident I've developed the skills to kind of do both things at once and still be able to give 100% to both things.
Thank you. Bouncing back, Chris wrote, you have been transparent in the past that the current administration did deny your membership into the organization. And so what have you learned from that experience and how do you plan to move forward with this knowledge?
That's a really good question. And when this happened to me, I saw the flaws in the organization. I saw that voices and advocates for the groups on campus that needed to be advocated for were being denied, and they were on personal reasons, which is unprofessional and has no place in a student government that's there for every student. So it really opened my eyes to the problems that Student Government Association faces and problems that we need to work on. And Aaliyah and I can implement plans to fix. So.
Thank you. Moving to Rebecca. No, given you have been out of SGA for the past year, how do you plan to jump into the organization and help run the organization as vice president should you be elected?
That's a good question. So I do have past SGA experience, but it was about a year ago. And when I stepped back from SGA, I did so because of academic reasons. And academics always come first. That's been my mindset the entire time I've been at university. And after having that break, I think that it's given me time to observe SGA from the outside, see how it's working, how it's not working, how people are interacting with it, what the public perception of SGA is, and kind of take that outside perspective and bring it back in so I can do what I can from the inside to make SGA better for everyone on the outside.
Thank you. This question will be for the candidate wrote ticket, not for you both, not for one of you individually. But one of your key goals is bridging the gap between the different communities on campus. And so what are some of those communities, and what are the specific ways that you will connect them as SGA leadership?
Aaliyah, if you'd like to start on that.
Okay, so bridging the gap between the different communities, we basically want to make sure everyone has a space and has an opportunity to share their voices. We have lots of different organizations and individuals on campus that don't have a space or have the support that they need. Now, Chris can tell you a lot more about the resources and what we plan to do as far as that.
So obviously there's been tension on campus between different groups, especially those of different racial communities, backgrounds, ethnicities. So like I said, one of the things we want to do is bridge that gap by being able to collaborate together, giving everyone an equal voice at the table, not just giving them a seat at the table, but lifting up their voices to give them an equal voice at the table. And one way that we plan to implement this is it was brought to our attention that there are offices for African American Student Initiative, Latino programs and services, LGBTQ programs and services, but there's no office for Asian American, Pacific Islander, or Middle Eastern students. So one way that we wanted to implement this was to create an ad hoc committee that will be working with administration to create these offices for students of these backgrounds, so they have that safe space on campus that they can go to and they can be themselves. So those are just some ways that we plan on implementing this goal. We don't have all the answers right away, but we want to go out and listen. We want to hear what you all need to be done, what all the students need to be done, and we want to go ahead and do that for you.
Thank you. This question will be for Coates and Noel. You both talked about getting involved with more organizations. And so what specific organizations would you like to become more involved with to improve student life at NKU?
For sure. So I wouldn't say there are any specific organizations that we really want to work with in particular, but it's just the matter of having open communication between leadership and organizations. I want any leader of any organization, as a matter of fact, anyone in any organization, to be able to reach out to Rebecca and I personally and kind of have their concerns voiced. And as far as collaboration goes, it's really just if an organization wants us to help them publicize or put on an event, we're willing to do that. And if we're doing an event that we're not particularly experts on, partnering with people to really make sure that we're putting on the best event possible. And so specific organizations, maybe not any specifics in mind, but just, being open to reaching out to anybody and hearing feedback from anyone on campus who has it to give.
So a big part of Jackson and I's campaign is the fact that student government exists to serve all of the students. And with that whole mindset, we don't see why there's any reason why SGA should host any events on campus alone. Anything that we do should be in partnership with other areas on campus, so we can be engaging as many students as possible, using as many resources as possible, and overall building people's experiences and time here on campus.
Thank you. As we continue, I do want to remind the tickets that there is a 1-minute cap between the two of you if you do like to speak as we continue into more questions. But going back to
question, Josh.
Yes.
Yes. So if we go over the time limit, will you let us know we're going over the time limit?
Yes, I will.
Okay, thank you.
For the next question is for Kenan and Rote. So one of your topics that you discussed heavily is mental health, and you emphasized it during the COVID-19 pandemic. And so that many students will be experiencing barriers to campus resources. And so as leaders of SGA, how do you plan to help those students get better access to those resources on campus?
Thank you. I'll take that question. That was amazing. So mental health is very important to me because I have suffered from depression. I've also suffered from suicidal ideation as well. And throughout my journey and getting help and gaining counseling at NKU, I've realized, yes, we have resources, but we don't have enough. What about those students from backgrounds that they're not able to get help because you have to be strong? You can't protect your mental health in your community. So therefore, we want to make sure you have resources, even if you can't take that leap yet. So we want to do programs in April, for instance, a coping skill box creating class, where we're going to allow students to come in and do different affirmations and different stress balls and put it all together so that when they're going through those rough times and they get in that dark place that no one can pull them out, they're able to go to what they have and use it as a resource, because sometimes talking to other people isn't always the best way. So we have to learn how to cope in our own ways. And that's how we do that, because education is power and knowledge is power. So we want to make sure we give the power to the people.
Yeah, and to add on to that, as somebody who has been diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder and diagnosed with depression and is medicated for these things, this is something that hits really close to home for me. So one thing that we have completely agreed on and will not settle for is the fact that access to mental health resources should not be conditional.
Thank you. The next question we have will be for Coates and Noel. One of your goals is to restore university life after the pandemic. And so what specific ways do you hope to accomplish that, and how will you balance student health and safety with that restoration?
Sure. So first and foremost, anything that we do is based on what's safe to do based on COVID protocol, right? And so that said, we're on track to have herd immunity by next fall. And so if that ends up being the case, we want to be strong advocates to the faculty that students want to have their classes in person. And although the university has promised this already, they kind of promised it for this semester as well. And so after last semester, the last spring semester, there was a survey between faculty, and a majority of faculty preferred to be online. And so it's students paying the tuition. And so we want to make sure that students are able to get back into the classroom and get that experience that they're honestly paying for, because we recognize some of the educational process is lost online.
And so if we are able to make this transition back to in-person classes and events next semester, we want to be able to make sure that we are doing everything in our power to provide support both for organizations and individuals through this time, because any kind of transitional period is going to be difficult for people. And we just want everyone to know that we are open and receptive to any of their feedback and want to do what we can to make sure that this is an easy time for them.
Thank you all for that portion. We will now be moving into our submitted question portion. These were submitted by students on our Instagram polls, on our Facebook messages. These are questions students really want to know. And so these are, unless I say, they're directed to both candidates. And so you guys are able to speak on these. And since we started last round with Cannon, this round we'll start with Coates. And so the first question will be, do you believe that academic racism is an issue at our university? And if so, please explain how you plan to bridge the gap between professors and minority students.
Absolutely. So it's been made clear to us in just one specific example. I've served on the academics committee in SGA, and a lot of times, especially we've seen with like Indigenous courses that have to do with Indigenous people, there's a disconnect between faculty and people who are of that background. And so it starts with hearing from students, and that students feel like they're able to bring that issue to us. And then from there, taking that issue to faculty and working with faculty to see how could we do better. Because it is an issue and there are ways we can improve. But again, it starts with hearing it from students and then being able to honestly and effectively take it to faculty in order to address the issue.
All right.
Sorry, I was just going to add that by publicizing this anonymous suggestion box, we hope to make students aware that they are able to reach out if one of their professors makes a comment that is inappropriate, or if they do something that should not be allowed, that they have a place where they can go, where they can feel safe enough to tell someone about this without feeling that they are putting their own personal standing with the university in jeopardy.
All right, I'll go ahead and answer this question. Yes, academic racism is real at NKU. That's not nothing that's hidden under the covers. As a minority and as a student that has lived it, and as an individual who sits on panels constantly throughout the year to tell the world about my Black experience at NKU, I've realized that there's just a lack of knowledge. Our professors are not given the right resources and the adequate resources they need to be a support system for all of our minority and marginalized communities. They don't know how to support me as a Black woman because they might not be a Black woman. They might be a white male or a white female. Therefore, we have to get more trainings. We have to make sure that we work hand in hand with different offices. For instance, the Black Norseman last semester, we put out a list of demands. And on that list of demands, we talked about diversity training for our professors that they need to go through to make sure they're able to support us, and just making sure that those things are being followed through on. So I'm not here to start the world and start everything over. We have so many things being developed and pushed right now that can be enhanced and really make sure that all of our students get the best experience that they need.
Thank you. Due to my apology, I skipped over a section, so we will be backtracking just a second. We'll come back to the student submitted questions. So my apologies for that. These are questions, again, they are for both of you to answer. These were provided from the Northerner, so that's my apologies on that. So what challenges do you foresee with your positions, and how do you plan on overcoming them? We can start with Coates again.
Excellent. So as is with SGA, everything we do runs through faculty. And unfortunately, most of the time, faculty are hesitant to approve projects and put in work to something because, they don't have to. And that's why with a lot of our starting projects, things that are very easy for faculty, a few things are not, but we have things that are easy to pass with faculty. The hardest things that we'll come across is maybe increasing funding for student resources on campus would be one of the harder things, but nothing in our campaign really is so dependent on professors and faculty that it can't be achieved. And so that's really the biggest block between us and fulfilling our promises is getting it through faculty, but nothing we have is particularly demanding.
So I'm sorry, Rebecca.
No, you're fine. No, go on. It's fine.
Oh, okay. So the biggest adversity that I foresee us taking is not being able to change the world in just one term, because sometimes like there's these amazing ideas, there's all these changes we want to do, but we have such a short span. So it's making sure that we are intentional and that we are really hitting the ground running and getting things going, because we have such a short time to really plant those seeds so that eventually they can grow and flourish into some amazing things in the future.
Yeah, if I could add on to that, for me personally, I think my biggest issue I could face going in is the fact that I'm running as an outsider. I have never served in SGA. However, I think I could use that to my advantage as I have a clear outside perspective. I might need help figuring out how to properly form a resolution or do this, do that, but I have the ideas, I have the drive, I have the characteristics and leadership skills to do it. And I have people who have agreed to mentor me. I have friends who have served. One of my personal mentors is former President Jarrett Lopez. So I have these systems and areas of support where I'm able to reach out to for help when I don't know the answer to something.
Thank you. That is a great segue for our next question. So both candidates between the two of you have roughly a year at most serving in SGA. All four. And so what makes you qualified to serve as student body president and regent, even though you've had such short time in SGA? Chris, you can start it if you want to, since you just left that question, kind of, sort of.
Yeah, of course. So I think the fact that I have served on multiple executive boards before, I serve as the vice president of recruitment for Sigma Phi Epsilon, and I'm the vice president of member and community development for Interfraternity Council. So like I said, I've served on executive boards, I've worked with advisors, I've worked with people who have a lot of different ideas than I do, and I've been able to, on these boards, collaborate and work together, hash out our differences and figure out what we can do to work together and give the organization what it deserves, because at the end of the day, all four of us have the organization's best interests at heart. We all want the best for the student body. We all want the best for student government. So like I said, I would be willing to work with anyone to figure out how we need to move forward as an SGA.
Is it my turn? Okay, so I'm qualified because I'm a servant leader. The change I want is genuine. The change I want for our people, for us, is genuine. Coming from a life of adversity, trials and tribulations, it has gotten me prepared for this experience, for this next move in my life. And there's no doubt in my mind, yes, there are times I'm going to fall. Yes, there are times I'm going to be great, but through all of that, I'm going to learn and continue to grow. As a leader, you have to grow, you have to fail, because if you don't fail, you will never succeed. So I'm excited. The adversity has prepared me and I don't fold under pressure. So I'm excited for this.
Thank you. Coates, Noel?
So Jackson and I actually each have a year of experience on SGA separately, and collectively we've served under every administration that's been at NKU since the time that we were freshmen. And so we've had the opportunity to see different leadership styles enacted in SGA and see what works and what doesn't work, and get different perspectives on how everything is run. And I personally think that my SGA experience has prepared me a lot for this, because I have had failures with the organization. I've tried to make resolutions that faculty have squashed almost immediately, and I've had successes in this organization. My first semester in SGA, I wrote a resolution for an emergency fund, and it got passed by the Senate. And last year, that turned into the COVID-19 Student Emergency Fund, and it's been enacted and serving over 500 students this past year throughout the pandemic. So personal experiences in this organization will really help us to support the newer members and help to grow it to serve the community.
So personally, we've all seen the consequences of ineffective communication, either in SGA or at the university as a whole. And so what makes me qualified for the position is the ability to effectively communicate not only with the student body, but also with faculty. I presented research at the Board of Regents before. I have relationships with faculty. And just the ability to be able to clearly convey ideas to faculty and have that kind of diplomacy to be able to get things done in SGA is very important. And so for me, my time at NKU through various organizations, kind of developing these communication skills and building relationships with people, I think is what makes me qualified to serve as student body president as well as the student regent.
Thank you. So our next question is, as NKU transitions into a new SGA leadership, how will you work to be a liaison between Dr. Vija and the student body? Cannon, you can start first.
Of course, thank you. So in Videa, we have had a relationship since the day he's came on campus, and I believe he is very aware that I am a change agent and I am here for our students. A short story, a couple years back, I went up to his office and I didn't know about proper protocol. And I was like, President Videa, we need your help because this isn't happening right and something's going wrong. Next thing you know, he snapped his fingers and the change happened and our students were good and in the position they needed to be in. So I'm not at all afraid to bring the concerns of our students to President Videa, and he knows that I love and respect his position, but I will always be for the people. And with that relationship, I know we're going to do some amazing things to amplify our students.
Rhoda, if you don't have anything to say, Coates, you can move forward.
All right, awesome. So as far as working with President Videa, obviously communication is very important, making it clear that we're pursuing change. And kind of similar to what Aaliyah said is that obviously working with faculty is a thing of respecting their position, but also not being afraid to push a little bit because you're going to get told no, and the ability to push back and continue trying to work towards compromise for change is something that's really important. And so just kind of obviously respecting the position of authority, but also, you know, as student body regent, you also have authority in meetings and in communicating with people. And so it's important that you're able to hold your ground to communicate ideas effectively.
Thank you. Noel, do you have anything you'd like to chime in with? Okay, awesome. So moving on to the next question. As the current mood of SGA is shifting, how do you plan to navigate this current atmosphere within the organization and push forward into next year? We can start with Coates this time.
Awesome. So it all starts with hearing feedback and taking that feedback into consideration and turning it into tangible action. And so the first thing that we can do in SGA is implement ways for students to talk to us. And when they do, to take those ideas into real consideration and put them into action. And so as far as repairing SGA's relationship with the student body, we have some proving to do that we're serious about getting things done for them, because we see a lot of promises throughout campaigns, and how many of them do we see fulfilled? And then within repairing SGA itself, it's kind of getting back to understanding each other's point of view and really just coming together as an organization that's focused on change for the university. So obviously there's work to be done, and we're ready to do it.
One of the biggest things that they advocate for in SGA in the past is that we do serve the students. But in my time at SGA and in Jackson's time, we have never once heard anyone come to meeting and relay information that a student had told them about a problem that they were experiencing. And so what we want to do is change the mentality that SGA will listen to you, but they won't like speak for you, and they won't voice your concerns to the rest of the organization. So we want to have time dedicated in every single meeting every week where we can not only listen to students, but take what we've heard and share that with the general body.
Awesome. Chris, you raised your hand.
Yes, I would like to make a short rebuttal. So I know the Coach Noel ticket spoke about wanting to advocate for the students and what the students want. But with all due respect, I must reiterate the fact that Senator Coates did vote no on the impeachment of President Goodwin.
You can respond to that, Jackson.
Yeah, I would love to.
About 30 seconds.
So this is something I addressed in the article with the Northerner, and on the issue of impeachment is an issue of constitutional infringement. And so there was not constitutional infringement proven. And so voting yes would set a dangerous precedent of being able to start an impeachment process against anyone in the organization doesn't like. For example, if a senator was supporting the mandatory meal plan, if I didn't like that, I could then move to impeach them without constitutional infringement. It's just a dangerous precedent to set. And that is why I voted no on the impeachment, because there was no proven violation.
Okay. Now, Aaliyah, it's your turn to answer the question. Do you need me to repeat the question, or are you good?
Yes, please.
Okay. So the question is, as the current mood within SGA is shifting in the atmosphere of the organization, how do you plan to navigate and push forward into the next year?
It's funny you asked that question. So actually yesterday I sat down with President Goodwin and we had a long, constructive conversation just to talk about the current state of our SGA and how we can better where we are now. And we realized that the infrastructure is where we are broken. So we can't help our students and really make change on campus if we aren't helping ourselves. Therefore, we've been in the works and we're trying to plan to do some fun stuff next meeting to actually get to know one another, to actually build relationships, because we have to care and be in support of one another before we can actually build. Because if we're having confrontation, which is constructive, but we're not all knowing of each other and how we react to things, that confrontation is not going to lead to a compromise or a solution. Therefore, we're going to start working on the infrastructure, and then from there, we're going to continue to build up and help our students, because it's all about them.
Yeah, and to add on to that, I would like to speak on personal experience. So just for example, within Interfraternity Council, our executive board has a very close relationship. We're kind of like a family, especially at meetings. We joke around, we take things serious, but we all get along. And I think bringing that type of relationship to not just SGA executive board, but the entire general body could create a very, very efficient and organized group to advocate for our students on campus.
Thank you. So the final question submitted from the Northerner, then we'll move back into the student submitted questions. So over the past year, NKU has experienced a lot of scrutiny from the student body, alumni, and community members for incidents including racism, sexual assault, and white supremacy. So how do you plan to address and move forward beyond these incidents? We can start with, who did we start with last time? Oates. We can start with Aaliyah this time.
All right, thank you. So this is something I stress to everyone. Sometimes we try to be so perfect, but no one really wants perfect, because perfect comes off as fake. We want genuine, we want real. Even if you mess up, at least we know it comes from the heart. And I think that's what needs to be pushed throughout our university. Like, instead of sending out a statement 10 days later after the event already took place, put out a video and say, I apologize. I don't know why this happened, but we are going to work to make sure that it doesn't happen again, and that our students feel safe, and that free speech is made sure that it's known. And what is the difference between that and hate speech? It's having action and taking action in the moment, and being able to work under pressure and not wait until everything calms down to then move to take action. So we want just genuine authenticity, and that's what we're bringing to the table. We're being real.
Yeah, and to add on to that, as Aaliyah said, we want to go to the university, and it starts with policy. So we want to go to the administration and find out from them and get we get a clear definition as to what constitutes free speech and what constitutes hate speech that presents a imminent harm to the marginalized and minority groups on campus.
Thank you, Coates and Noel.
So this is something that was obviously brought to the forefront in the university this semester, is that the general culture here at NKU is in need of a change. We have a lot of people on campus who maybe aren't as accepting of other people as they should be, and we honestly don't think that making statements or having people do online training is not the solution. Because if someone is truly bigoted in their heart, taking 30 minutes to do an online survey doesn't really get the job done, we don't think. And so what we want to do is get the campus as a whole involved in service projects so they can experience and work with people who are different from themselves. Maybe they wouldn't interact with on their usual day-to-day basis, and kind of create a culture of empathy, being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes and understanding on campus, so that we have kind of a collective culture as a student body of we're accepting of anybody that comes to campus without exception. And this is something that we can do in SGA without faculty support. So we can organize events like this, and we can get people involved and really start to make a difference at the core of the issue.
We'll let Aaliyah go. Okay. Noel, and then we'll come back to Aaliyah.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Sorry.
My apologies.
I was just gonna add on to what Jackson said, and we recognize that there is work being done on campus, and we just want to do what we can to amplify this work. And by incorporating as many different organizations and individuals in these projects as possible, we can get a better representation of the entire campus community, because there are different organizations that have service projects that do events like this, but not every student feels welcome and like this is a community that they can join because they're not in like the right organization or they don't have the right friend group. So we just want to open this up to all students so that everyone can be a part of this new culture and atmosphere.
Thank you. Aaliyah.
I had a rebuttal question, if you didn't mind. All right, so I know you are talking about making marginalized and minority communities feel safe and creating that space for empathy. But as a leader and a Black leader on campus, it has been brought to my attention that you all haven't went and spoke to any Black organization here. So how do you all plan to do that and implement it if you haven't reached out to those individuals?
Yeah, so the number of meetings we've had so far is very limited. I think it's been 2 or 3. And honestly, due to scheduling conflicts, I know Rebecca and I are both very busy this semester. I know she's working a lot of hours every week. We've been extremely limited on the meetings that we can make. So that's obviously something that we wish was different about the campaign, but it is what it is based on our time requirements. But we want to make it clear to leadership in any organization on campus that we're open to working with them and we want to work with them. The thing about the service projects is we want to involve leaders from as many organizations as possible in order to have it be as campus-wide as possible. If we get all the organizations involved and every single organization is involved and committed to these projects, we start to get the kind of campus-wide exposure that starts to get commuters and everyone who may not be as involved on campus as they would like to be, an opportunity to be involved.
Thank you. Yes, Aaliyah.
One more question, I apologize. I understand that campaign season is only 3 weeks long. So how do you all prepare to not be too busy to go and speak to your students if you can't do it in this time span? And then what is bi-weekly community service projects going to effectively do? Because trying to get a university together every 2 weeks is impossible.
So when it comes to scheduling conflicts during the campaign season, if we were to be elected into this position, Jackson and I are both fully aware of the fact that we will need to take a step back in some of our other commitments and reduce a lot of our time constraints. But I mean, I have a job and I work full time right now, and getting that time off requires like 2 or 3 weeks in advance, and trying to organize meetings with different organizations on campus, it doesn't really happen in a 2-week in advance kind of time set. It's more of a like day by day, week by week kind of basis. And so if we were to be elected, we do know that we will need to take those permanent steps to open up our availability for the students.
Okay, thank you. We will be moving on to the submitted portion right now. Sorry, we do have to limit that just to keep time going as well. And so we will be moving on to the submitted question portion as well. And so as always, if you have any questions you'd like to ask the candidates, continue to send them in. And so we've already done the first question due to my failures. And so we'll move on to the second one. I believe we started with Coates last time. We'll start with Cannon. And so do you plan to increase the number of minority senators and e-board members to better represent all communities? And if so, please explain how you will make the Student Government Association more accessible to these communities.
Yes, thank you so much for that question. So for one, right now, SGA elections are going on, and I have been working with a lot of different students in different communities. Some of us are completing applications tomorrow, but getting them applied now so that they can be the change for later. But also we have to make sure we create that strong foundation so that students will want to come. But I've done a lot of research, and I really love the history and the passion they have at HBCUs in their Student Government Association. And a program that they do is actually a SGA informational. I haven't seen that done here at NKU, but I want to create a safe setting where people can come and ask all the questions they want and get the information they need so that they can actually be prepared to join and be a part of this organization, because there is no doubt in my mind that there are people in every community ready to make that change and be a change agent. We just have to give them that platform and know that it is safe to do so.
Yeah, to add on to that, we want to make this an organization that people are longing to join. A lot of people that I've talked to in these marginalized communities have said, we see what goes on in SGA. We don't want to be a part of that. So we want to be able to bridge that gap, have this organization be one that people from all sorts of different communities are really wanting to join, wanting to make a difference in. And that is going to be the biggest step in moving forward and creating a more diverse body within SGA.
Thank you, Coates and Noel.
So it has to do with reaching out to presidents of organizations that are underrepresented and meeting with those groups and letting them know in their open seats that we'd like to have them in SGA, but also giving the flexibility that maybe if nobody wants to go through the senator application, then they're welcome to send as many representatives as possible to increase diversity in that way. If the Senate happens to be full, we want people that are not represented in a meeting to get that representation. And we want to make that clear that that's a priority, and that's something that we desperately need to have in the meetings of SGA.
SGA has had a big public image problem on campus, not just in this year, but in years past. And we want to do what we can to kind of repair this by showing the students that we do want to listen to them and we do want them to show up, to hold us accountable, and to do what they can to work with us to better NKU for them.
Thank you. Moving on to the next question. What do you see as the top 3 issues facing students, and how do you plan to fix them? We can start with Coates and Noel this time.
Real quick before Jackson starts talking, could you repeat the question? It kind of cut out and I couldn't fully hear you.
You're fine. What do you see as the top 3 issues facing students, and how do you plan to fix them?
So one major issue, I think, is students not being able to effectively influence what student government does for them. And this is what our expansion of SGA pillar really makes possible, is that students should be involved in the democratic process. Like, that's how government works, is letting your representatives know what you need and what you want. And so I'd say that's definitely one thing for our campaign that we think is facing students of they can't feel like they can effectively change what SGA is doing. Well, they should be driving what we're doing. Rebecca, did you want to?
Yeah, so another issue that is really big with SGA is people not feeling like what they say gets heard and gets relayed to the general body. And so, as I mentioned earlier, we want to have a specific time set aside every meeting, not only to listen to people and listen to the concerns that they have, but to discuss things that we like received in suggestion box or people who came to talk to us before meeting or stuff we've heard throughout the week, but so that we can set a precedent that if you bring something to someone in SGA, that will get relayed to the general body every week without fail.
And probably a third thing would be just the state of student resources on campus. And this is something our campaign is really passionate about is NKU already has a lot of good resources in principle in place, but a lot of them are underdeveloped and a lot of students don't even know they exist. For example, the lending library is such an awesome resource, but a lot of times maybe they don't have what you're looking for. Maybe students don't even know it exists. So we want to work with the university to see what we can do to not only publicize these services, but also make them better for students so that if you go to the lending library, chances are pretty good you'll find what you want. Because right now, those services that are really good in their ideas maybe are not fully developed.
Okay. Cannon and Rote.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes. What do you see as the top 3 issues facing students, and how do you plan to fix them?
All right, great. So I'm going to talk about 2, and then Chris is going to jump into another one as well. So mental health is very important, as well as resources and support on campus. When I had a meeting with Dr. Eddie Howard, we were talking about how students come to NKU as freshmen and, they're prepared, they get on campus, and then they're first generation students, and bam, they're knocked with a bill and they're knocked with all of these things that they don't know how to handle. And that leads to either depression, dropping out, or being in debt. So we need to make sure that our students have those adequate resources. They have that support and they're not just out here on their own, because for many, this is just new to us. And being a broke college student, it's never the classes that have us worried about school. It's everything going on around us. It's imperative that our university make sure that that is a priority. And we want to make sure we make that a priority.
Yeah, so the second thing I want to bring up is pretty simple. It's just involvement on campus. As the vice president of recruitment for a fraternity, I've seen it firsthand. A lot of stuff with COVID, nothing's in person. Nobody wants to get involved. Nobody wants to spend their time doing anything. So we want to advocate to safely have in-person events throughout the rest of this year and all of next year, so students can get that experience that they're paying for, because the people that get the most out of college aren't the dorm students.
Thank you. Moving to the next question. Now that the recent impeachment hearings of President Goodwin are over, how do you plan to mend any differences between the executive and the legislative bodies of the organization? And we can start with, I believe we start with Coach. We can start with Cannon and Rote this time.
Okay, great. Thank you for that question. So like I said earlier, we have to mend the actual relationships and the actual bond. Yes, we are an organization. Yes, we are here for the people. But if we are broken, we cannot be there for the people. So we're going to start mending. We're going to start growing. We're going to start getting to know each other. I know I personally am going to plan an actual retreat, not just one day, but a couple days where we get together and we do fun stuff and we elevate ourselves as leaders and individuals to make sure that everyone is able to grow in their best self to be the best they need to be for our students.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff that we want to do with SGA is make it a family. And obviously, a lot of the time, families have disagreements. Families have different views on certain things, sometimes different political opinions. But SGA isn't a political institution. It is an advocacy group. So we're all there for the right and the same reasons. We want to support the students and be there for the students. We all have the same goal in mind. So if we're just able to get close and enjoy the time we spend together, work together as a family, this will really create a unified body that can truly, truly, truly advocate for the students and their needs.
Thank you, Coach Noel.
Yeah, so in addition to building relationships, I think something that's really important for SGA to kind of move towards is just being unified under an absolutely common goal. And this is something that will come over time. And as we start to get things done, people will start to see that SGA can really affect the day-to-day lives of students. And so by having attainable goals and getting them done, hopefully bringing a new life to SGA, we can see that senators, really understand that we can make a big difference. And that can be a unifying thing of just kind of coming together for the betterment of the student body, because we're all in the student body and we all care deeply about the student body. And so that's something that everyone in meeting has in common. Absolutely.
As a member of an organization that exists for the sole purpose of serving and helping other students, it can be really easy to get caught up in that and forget that you are one of those students who that organization exists to serve. And in my time in SGA, something that I really enjoyed was President Lopez's implementation of weekly highs and lows from every senator. So everyone in that organization got to go around and say the best part of their week and the worst part of their week. It allowed us to not only get to know each other better, but to kind of vocalize some of those frustrations and hardships that we were experiencing in our personal lives so we could move past those and serve the students better.
Thank you. We can start with Coates and Noel this time. This is again submitted. How have you and how will you continue to support the Latino and Hispanic communities on campus?
So something we can definitely do is reach out to LAMP and be directly involved with them in programming, in directing events, just kind of in general promoting and having them be involved in the organization. Because, like we said, every single student at the university has things they want to say, and we want to hear what every community and every group has to say. And the Latino community is no exception. And so if they need something from us, such as helping promote their events, or they have a specific issue on campus, that's something that we obviously need and want to hear. And that's something we want to make just absolutely clear.
We also want to invite different organizations like LAMP to come not only present to the SGA general body, but to also partner with us in different kinds of like Victor Talks or roundtable type discussions, where they can be in a setting where they can speak to different students about the opportunities and the support that they can provide them with, so that they can vocalize that to all of the people who they know on campus and hopefully reach a wider audience and provide more support to students.
Thank you. Cannon wrote.
Thank you. That was a great question. So I have been building a lot of amazing relationships over the years, especially with our people in Latino programs and services. And with that being said, last week I went to the office just to talk about some things, and we realized that there's an importance of knowing about immigration and how that affects our students on campus who have experienced that, and everyone being aware how to move forward with it. For instance, some people just like to brush forward and act as if they don't go, well, are you an immigrant or are you an alien? They try to avoid it because they don't want to offend someone. But as an individual in that community, I've been told that they want that to be said, like they need to know how it works, and everyone needs to be educated on the topic. So therefore, we have been talking about doing some informational sessions so that our community can be aware of the different things that their population is facing and how we can best support them on this campus and make them feel included.
And also, like I mentioned earlier, I believe the Office's Latino Programs and Services is understaffed and underfunded. So one thing we want to do is bring more resources to the office so they can give those resources to their members. Second thing I want to bring up is just being very intentional and going to these organizations' events and having this dialogue, hearing their needs. And then the third thing I want to bring up is working with the administration and seeing what we can do to protect Dreamers under any circumstance that we can.
Thank you. Moving on to the next question. How do you plan to increase environmentally sustainable How do you plan to increase environmentally stable initiatives and resources for students, faculty, and staff throughout campus? You can start with Cannon wrote this time.
Yeah, so I'd like to start that one off. One thing that we have discussed and have kind of shared in other meetings is the fact that we want to have a senator under the University Improvements Committee whose main goal, like of course, he or she will be a voting member, they'll be a voting member, but their main goal is going to be to focus on sustainability and working towards these goals, working with the administration, seeing what is able to happen in order to move forward, get a green initiative going on campus, and hopefully make us rely mostly on green energy in the next 10 years would be ideal.
And I'm going to add on to that. So I'm going to be honest. This is a genuine moment. So I didn't know nothing about sustainability. I come from the west end of Louisville, Kentucky. Not really a neighborhood where you see recycling bins. So when I went to the Sunrise Movement's meeting last week and we talked about these things, this was my first time really understanding the importance of being green and sustainability. So working with Jimmy, he's about to train me and get my life together, but there's always room to grow and always room to be there for the people. But sometimes we have to learn, because I don't know everything in the world and Chris doesn't either. But we're excited to take those ideas and implement them on campus. Like, we started talking about potentially doing different things that will make our campus a greener and more sustainable campus.
Thank you. We can move to Jackson and Rebecca.
One thing that we're really passionate about in terms of sustainability is advocating for the movement away from single-use plastics. The university still uses a lot of plastics that are seen when they're used, and then the next time they see the light of day is in the landfill. And waste like this is absolutely avoidable. And maybe we can't move away from it immediately, but we can start moving in the right direction and make the faculty aware that we want to move in this direction. A second thing is a lot of food waste on campus absolutely just has no purpose. And so we want to implement composting bins outside of dining halls as well as the SU, so that if you don't finish your food, you can put it towards something sustainable, right? And so we'd also like to see a community garden implemented, and also utilize the one that does exist behind the Honors House, but also have one more center to the community that people from the community, alumni, students can come partake in, and we can use that compost there and donate the things grown to maybe local food drives.
Noel, do you have anything you want to say before we
Yeah,
take
I
rebuttals?
thought I was unmuted and then I started talking and then I wasn't.
You're good.
But so the last kind of section of our sustainability pillar that we want to focus on is looking at goals and projections for NKU and for the future. So we want to be able to sit down and look at the numbers, look at what we're doing right now and what we can do to, in 5 years, in 10 years, 15 years, become more sustainable overall and a more green university.
Okay, so we had a couple rebuttals. Chris, I believe.
Yeah, this is just for clarification. Am I allowed to bring up a point that I forgot to mention in my first statement?
You will have a quick 30 seconds to do so.
Okay, yeah, so it is really quick. I just wanted to talk about the fact that I was a residential student last year, and there was a big issue with recycling in the dorms, because these big recycling bins either aren't very visible or they're not very common on campus. So what we want to do is be able to have recycling be a more common practice in the residential halls.
Okay, thank you. As we continue, I do want to say thank you guys for being here so far. We are in the first hour. We're just now ending it. So we still have another hour to go. So thank you guys for your participation. We will continue on with these questions. And so the next one that we have is, we will start with Coates and Noel. How do you plan to engage the marginalized students and communities on campus?
So just going back to improving the feedback we get and the communication we have with every group on campus, and letting leaders of organizations know that they can come to us with questions. And specifically, marginalized groups put on fantastic culturally enriching events. And we want to make sure that we're able to promote their events effectively. And again, just making it clear that we want them represented at meeting, whether in the Senate or as a representative, whichever one works best for them. We would just want to make sure that there are ways that we're able to hear their voices.
One of the reasons why communication is something so important to our campaign and our platform is because Jackson and I are both fully aware that we do not know the correct thing to do in every single situation for every single student. And so what we are promising is that we will do whatever we can to the best of our abilities. And if we do something that we could have done better or that we didn't do very well, we want students to be able to come to us and say, hey, what you did there, you should have done this instead, or you could have done this better, or you could have done this differently. And we want to be able to take that feedback and grow, not only as individuals, but grow SGA as an organization.
Thank you. Cannon Rope.
May I rebuttal for that question first?
Yes.
Okay, quick question. How many minority, marginalized, or Black Norse events have you all attended? Because I haven't seen you at any.
So I did attend a Black History Month event last month. But other than that, my involvement has been less than I would want. But obviously, this semester is a pretty big semester for me. And as we mentioned, we're both very busy with our schedules and stuff like that. So what we can attend specifically this year is a little limited. But again, we would like to expand on that in the future.
Of course, which event was it?
It was on the 29th, I believe, or the 28th. It was about African American, well, not African American, but African communities around the world, not necessarily inside of Africa, but just in other countries as well.
Okay, thank you for that. Can you repeat the question for me, please, Josh?
Yes. So the question is, how do you plan to engage with marginalized communities on campus?
So we plan on engaging with marginalized and minority communities in a lot of ways, but the first thing is being in the community and being a part of the community. And if you aren't a member of the community, being an ally and what that actually looks like to be a good one. So educating yourself. Now, I am a part of the Black community, but I'm not a part of the Hispanic and Latino community. I am an ally of the LGBTQ plus community. There's different communities that we're going to gauge in with, but it's not just in the SGA room. It's not just about being in meetings. It's about actually building a relationship and showing them that we care and genuinely love them. I'm not here for a position. I make the position. And when I make the position, I want you to know that I'm here for our students and to make that change. Therefore, we're going to build a relationship and be family.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, I went to a predominantly white upper middle class high school. So coming into college, and currently I have blind spots when it comes to these marginalized communities. However, what I've been doing is taking it upon myself and not relying on anyone else to get myself educated. And then moving forward, what I really want to do is be intentional with our dialogues, be intentional with our conversations, and to make sure that we go out into these communities, hear their concerns, make sure they are heard, amplified, and understood, most importantly.
Thank you. We're going to move on to the next question. Sorry, my mind blanked. And so the next question is, we kind of talked about it a little bit with the presidents, so we can kind of go into this with the vice presidents. How do you plan to balance your time between academics and extracurriculars? And so we can start with Chris this time. I say as you're taking a drink. I apologize.
You are perfectly fine. So going forward, I do have 2 other executive board positions. However, a lot of the time, so for instance, for vice president of recruitment, it comes in waves as to when it's busy. There are some times when it's busy, sometimes where I don't have anything to do at all. So there will be probably about a month at the beginning of the fall semester where, yes, I am busy, but I also do very well at balancing my time and organizing my time. And then as far as interfraternity council goes, it's just a couple meetings a week, just bouncing ideas off each other, trying to create programming. So I think that moving forward, as long as I continue to stay organized, keep my agenda, know what I have and when I have it, I will be able to flawlessly move forward with this position and the time commitments that come along with it.
Okay, I do note that Aaliyah, you did have your hand up right before. You still have some time if you want to answer really quickly.
Yes, I apologize. I just wanted to make sure
Just really
Jackson,
quick.
Can y'all hear
Sorry,
me?
go ahead.
I just wanted to make sure Jackson knows that there's only 28 days in February, and he said he went to an event on the 29th. So I just wanted to make sure you were aware. That's all.
If you wanted, I can look up the exact name of the event and the day I was there if you'd like me to.
Oh, no worries. You're fine.
All right.
Okay, Rebecca, you can take the question now. Do you need me to repeat it?
Yes, sorry.
You're fine. And so this question is how do you plan to balance your time between academics and extracurriculars as vice president?
Okay, so about, I say this time a year ago, I moved back home for everything going on with COVID, and I've pretty much spent this past year like radio silent. I've hardly been to campus. I'm not really involved as much just because as a commuter, it's really difficult to find reasons to go to campus if your classes are all online. And so next year, I'm planning on living either on campus or closer to campus. And with that, I will also be cutting down my hours at work because that is what's taking up a majority of my time right now. And I plan on just giving SGA everything that I have. I am involved in the Honors College a lot, and I'm on the Honor Student Association Executive Board, but that organization isn't as time consuming as student government is. And if I were to be elected into this position, student government would be my top priority, and I would allocate the rest of my time accordingly.
Awesome, thank you. Moving on to the next question, we can keep this to the presidents this time. And so if elected, you guys did talk about one of your main priorities, but what would be some other priorities that you like to focus on? And so we can start with Coates this time.
So we've already talked a lot about each one of our pillars, but we do really want to talk about offering our support for students moving back into having classes and events in person, whether it be individuals, and that looks like promoting and advertising mental health services, destigmatizing there, offering support to organizations to have events in person, supporting classes being back in person, because a lot of students have experienced whether when they add it to their cart and they schedule their classes, it says their class will be in person. And then when the time rolls around to start classes, it's been moved online. So just kind of making sure that we're advocating for the students when it's safe to move back in person, that things are able to go smoothly, and as the university has already promised.
Okay, thank you. Aaliyah?
May you repeat the question, please?
Yes, so you already touched on one of your main priorities, but if you can talk about some other priorities you would have should you be elected.
So a priority that is important to me after the main priority, transparency, accountability, and integrity, is mental health. And I'm going to continue to push that because before you are a student, you are a person, and we all are going through things. And recently I've realized that the world doesn't stop when something happens to you or when you're going through something, and it just keeps moving. And when that happens, you don't know how to deal with it or what to do. So therefore, you have to keep moving with the world. And I want to make sure our students know that I'm here with you and I support you. And I understand that we can't stop the world right now, but I'm going to make sure you feel loved and that you have that support no matter what you're going through, and that you feel like you matter, and that you don't go to that dark place and get stuck where no one can pull you out, because I've been there and I know what that feels like. Therefore, mental health, we're going to keep pushing it.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the next question. And so what would you say that the current administration did that you can improve on, and how will you use the previous administration or administration's mistakes to grow from them? We can start with Kanan wrote this time.
All right, so I'm very big on moving to the future. There are a lot of things that we have learned from the past and how we can grow and move forward. And I think that's just talking about effective communication and effective relationships within the organization to make sure that it runs smoothly. And then to ensure that our students' voices are heard and we give them a seat at the table. I believe that the current leadership has had their ups and downs, but that's because that is what leadership is, having those ups and downs, but it's how you grow from them. And I know that we can take and dissect all of and everything that has happened over the years and be able to implement the right things to ensure that they do not happen again.
Yeah, and adding on to that, something that can be improved on, hopefully with our administration, from the past administration, is just being very intentional with the language that we use, the comments we make, the words that we use, because it may not seem like a big deal, but people hear them, people take them as they will, and people are hurt by them. So we really just want to make sure that we are using inclusive language, not belittling anyone, and just making sure that the SGA and the student body feels like a family.
Thank you. Moving on to Coach Noel.
One thing that's very clear that leadership needs to do and can be improved on from past administrations is taking criticism or feedback of any kind and internalizing it and turning it into something productive and responding in a productive way. just really making it clear that criticism and constructive criticism, constructive feedback is a great thing. We all need it. And there's a certain way that is not good to react, and there's a certain way that is good to react. And it's a priority of ours that when students have concerns, SGA is not really serving them to the best of its extent. When they want to see improvement somewhere, that we take that, and as workers for the students, that we honestly consider it and make sure that it is genuinely heard.
Communication is a central element to our campaign, and going into that, it's not just hearing people, it's about actually listening to them and understanding what they are saying to you and what they need and what you can do to give them what they need. And so what we want to do is just really emphasize the fact that we are here to listen to the students and to hear what they have to tell us and to do what we can to act upon that.
Thank you. We'll be now moving on to the student submitted portion, questions from this. So we've had a lot of questions come in from the audience at that, so thank you for that. We love to see people engaged. And so the first question is submitted by the NKU SGA Watchdog. It is specifically for Jackson Coates. And so the question is, have you researched or talked with university officials about the feasibility of your plans? It took several years for the university officials, this is the full question, it took several years for the university officials to add the link to the location of printers across campus, despite it being a requested feature. How will you make sure that your proposal actually gets enacted?
So a lot of our campaign was specifically designed so that these things are attainable. And as far as communicating with administration, I've already talked to NKU sustainability of just one area in particular, and they're a big fan of our ideas and have been communicating with us, and they're willing to work with us to get done the things that we've laid out. That's just one example of sustainability. And so among the other things that we said, none of them are that difficult to attain in 1 year. You could sit down and look at our campaign and make a checklist of things we said we're going to do, and we're confident that we can get them all done within the year. And that's something that's intentional. I'm not sure if I answered the question fully.
I believe you're good. And so this question is, again, from the SGA Watchdog for both candidates. And so we can start with Cannon Rote this time. And so the question is, why are you running? Aaliyah and Jackson, what specific powers of the presidency will you use to better serve the student body, and why do you need to be president instead of just being a senator?
Would you like me to go first?
Yes.
All right. So like I said earlier, I'm serving to be I'm running to be a servant leader. I want to do this for the people. I know what it feels like to not have a voice and to be knocked down and not to be heard and understood. And I want to make sure no one has to feel that way. Now, the things that I will be utilizing in my position to make sure that that change happens and that I couldn't do as an SGA senator is sitting on that Regent board. If we're being honest, the Board of Regents is over President Videa. They call the shots, and being a voting member on that board means that I can bring the students' concerns to the table, and I will not allow them to be pushed down, to be silenced, or to be said that they cannot happen, because change will come. I'm not going to be a placeholder. I'm not going to be an individual who just sits there and lets things happen. I currently sit on an international board, and at times I'm the only undergraduate in the room, but every time I am there, I make sure my undergraduates get their voices heard and that change is going to happen for them, because that's why I'm there. I'm not there to make other people happy. I'm there to make our people happy.
Thank you. Coates?
Personally, why I'm running is just a passion for NKU and a visibility of where things can be improved, and that there are things that we can do right now, next year, within the span of a year, to make those things better immediately. And I don't mean to use the same answer, but the main thing is just serving on the board, of being able to communicate directly with the people who make the decisions, so that the things that students want to get done can be heard directly. Just having that ability to communicate directly is the main, like the number one duty of the president. And so it's something that I'm confident I can be a good advocate for the students in that way.
Okay, thank you. This question is for the Canon and Wrote campaign, specifically Aaliyah, again from the SGA Watchdog. How will you advocate for trans students and amplify their voices in your administration?
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that question. So I will advocate for our trans students as I will advocate for all of our students. Their voices matter. They are important, and we need to make sure that they have that space on campus, that they have a safe space. Yes, we have the LGBTQ plus office, but do we have things in place that will make them feel comfortable? For instance, on Canvas, it has been brought to my attention, there is not a she, they option. So how do we not have particular things already in platform that make them feel safe and comfortable at NKU? I know students have came to me and told me this is one of, I think, the third most known school for LGBTQ plus communities and being a safe space for them. And they told me they didn't feel safe. I'm sorry. So I'm very aware that I don't know everything and I am an ally, but I do want to learn. I do want to grow. So if you have those ideas, I will come to you and we will be able to figure something out that is best for you. I don't know everything, but I will help you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're moving into other questions submitted by people. And so this question is brought to us by James. I sound like an ad person, but this question is brought to us by James. And so how would each campaign, should they be elected, ensure SGA is a safe space for senators, secretaries, justices, and students alike? We can start with Coates and Noel this time.
So I think creating a safe space it revolves around being an effective ally, which obviously pertains to having open ears, open eyes, and an open heart. But while you're being an ally, it's not necessarily your space to tell people how they should act or feel. The time where you open your mouth is when you're conveying these wants and needs to faculty. And so really it's just being open to feedback from anyone and just being on the lookout for issues that may arise to take care of them before they become real issues.
Another thing that we want to make clear from the very beginning, if we were to get elected, is that there are certain behaviors and languages that people use that are not okay and that are not welcome in our organization, and just make sure that everyone is being as inclusive and respectful as possible, and if not, that there is no place for that kind of behavior in SGA.
Thank you. Cannon Rope.
Thank you. So as we know, we all come from many different backgrounds and perspectives. So I want to make sure we have training to not only learn how to have constructive conversation, but to also learn each other's triggers and what can trigger one of us to go into a protective state. Because when we go into a protective state to someone else, that can be seen as disrespectful, but we're just trying to hold our own. Therefore, having those trainings and creating a safe space. But something that I think really needs to occur that I know the administration has been working on is getting rid of individuals in the organization that are publicizing it on social media and letting the world know what's going on, when sometimes SGA business is SGA business because we're trying to get our life together. So the watchdog, I love y'all to death, but being in our organization and leaking personal emails that people sent to the president is not respectful, and that's not something that we will tolerate in our administration.
Okay. Sorry, Chris, if you had a response, that was time on that one. But moving forward, this question is from, again, the note on Facebook. We did adjust some questions for clarity and for length as well, just to those that are submitting them. But this question is from Allison. And so what is your opinion on, how quality leaders should handle criticism? And if you are comfortable sharing, what is the time that you received and responded to criticism? We can start with Cannon wrote this time. Yes.
Okay, so basically, being a leader, sometimes we mess up, sometimes our feelings get hurt, but it's all about taking accountability for that. I have struggled in the past with taking constructive criticism and really understanding it and developing myself. But over the years and learning and growing at NKU, I have realized constructive criticism is the only thing that's going to make me better. So being the president for the National Panhellenic Council, after every meeting. I do check-ins with my individual members and I say, how are you all doing? Did the meeting go okay? Do you all need anything? Or if I have a confrontation, a constructive confrontation within our meetings, call that individual after. Do you feel okay? Do you need anything from me? Did I offend you? It's just all about open dialogue and being able to take accountability for your actions and still being a support system. Because I'm getting that constructive criticism because that means I'm not doing something right and I need to better the organization and better my leadership. Because if anyone in my organization drops the ball at the end of the day, that falls back on me and that means that I dropped the ball. So I'm gonna make sure that I do my best to take it in the most amazing way possible and then get the best answer out of it.
Yeah, do I still have time to continue?
You have it just about like 20 seconds or so.
Okay, so just sitting in the corner and sulking after receiving criticism isn't beneficial to me. It's not beneficial to anyone else. So really just taking this constructive criticism, taking this feedback, sometimes it's negative, sometimes it's positive, just working to enact it and put it in the place so I can be the best potential leader that I can be.
Thank you. Colton Knoll.
So we talked a little about earlier about we think this current administration could do better with receiving criticism, and really for us, it's just an understanding of where constructive criticism comes from. People give criticism because they want to see things do better, and even though it might hurt you when you hear it, it's important to know that the person criticizing you really means well and really wants to see you and your organization do better. And for me, with history and athletics, I always have coaches, trainers, even teammates telling me what I can do better, what I'm doing wrong, and just kind of coming to that from the perspective of they want to see me do the best job I can do, and then I, need to accept the criticism and make it better.
When it comes to receiving feedback, it's very important that you take time after receiving that feedback before you respond, because it's just human nature. If someone is standing up there and telling you things that you have done wrong and holding you accountable for your own actions, naturally, you're going to want to get defensive. You're going to want to confront that, to challenge that. But it's important to take time and actually listen to the things that people are bringing up to you, because as Jackson said, those criticisms come from a real place of concern and care and dedication towards bettering the university for everyone. And so we just want to make sure that not only do we take time to respond, but we open up a dialogue with people who provide us with criticism afterwards to make sure that we don't just hear their criticism, but we act on it, and that in the ways that we respond to it are getting to the heart of the problem.
Thank you. And so we have the next question. We'll ask, this is specifically for Chris Rote. This is from Sierra B. For Chris Rote, can you elaborate on when you said mental health should not be conditional?
Yeah, so like I said, accessibility to mental health should not be conditional. Just because we are in a pandemic right now and people are struggling right now, and yes, it's very nice that we have free counseling for the semester, but that's a condition. We're in a pandemic. Next year, who knows what our mental health counseling on campus is going to cost. So with no pandemic, they might take away the free counseling, and that creates a huge barrier for people struggling with their mental health. I mean, $15 a session isn't necessarily attainable for all college students. So that condition, as the pandemic ending being the condition, should not change the fact that our mental health services on campus need to be accessible to all students, regardless of any prior background, finances, experience, anything.
Thank you. So we'll move on to the next question. This one is from Allison W. again. And so what experience do you have with working with professional staff and university administration, particularly when they may not be receptive to what you have to say or do? We can start with Jackson and Rebecca.
So I have experience with faculty presenting research, and also through SGA, I've worked with faculty on a resolution that is currently not supported by administration, but I've shifted from the initial thing that I was pursuing to something that faculty would also support, because it's important when you're pursuing change to be open to compromise when necessary. Because at the end of the day, faculty make the decision on the resolution I'm pursuing. And if I have to choose between compromising and getting nothing, it's a decision that has to be made.
Rebecca, do you have anything you want to say really quickly?
Yeah, I was just going to add that I had the privilege of serving as an RA for a year last academic year, and I got to interact a lot with the Housing Pro staff. And so I got to have that firsthand experience of constantly seeing people who were employed by the university on a professional level and engaging in dialogue with them and working with them to try and provide things for the students. But I also received pushback from them for different, various reasons. And I understand some of the frustration and difficulties that comes with working with members of the faculty. And my personal experience allows me to kind of roll with that and overcome that.
Okay, thank you. Chris, you had your hand up first, so I'll allow you to go first.
Yeah, so I just have a question for Senator Coates. I know you mentioned the resolution that was not supported by faculty. Can you go over the basis of what that resolution originally proposed?
Sure. So the current resolution I was working on removing the foreign language requirement from the biology requirements, because it is currently the only STEM major at all of NKU that has a foreign language requirement. And after getting student feedback on the requirement, a lot of students felt like it wasn't beneficial to them. They would rather take things such as health ethics and things of that manner. It was something I was pursuing to have that removed. But then faculty was not supportive. So instead I've shifted towards having it relaxed a little bit and allowing maybe biology students to take other things, maybe things that are not exactly a language, but other culturally enriching classes, just to kind of give them more flexibility in that requirement. That's the resolution that I'm currently working on.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to Aaliyah. Did you have a question?
I had a rebuttal.
Okay, you can keep it quick then.
Okay, I was just gonna ask Rebecca, I know you stated that you were RA last year. Is there a reason that you didn't come back this year?
Yeah, so I applied for, to be rehired. I don't really know the correct thing, but I was rehired by University Housing, and I was one of the people who 4 weeks before classes started got that email letting them know that they were cutting me from the position. And so I had 4 weeks before classes started to figure out where I was living, how I was going to get to my classes and all that stuff.
Thank you. We'll be moving on to Aaliyah. The next question. Do you need me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Okay, so the question is from Allison W. What experience do you have with working with professional staff and university administration, particularly when they may not be receptive to what you have to say?
Thank you. So I have a lot of experience with working with administration, and even when they're not agreeing with what I'm saying, the point still gets across. That has been seen not only in meetings, not only in panel discussions that I go sit on monthly with AASI, where we go talk to different students in colleges and different faculty about the Black experience and what we need and the support we need. But I have challenged those faculty and staffs who will be sitting in the meeting but not paying attention to a thing we are saying, because sometimes people say they want change and people say that they're listening, but you can tell by their actions that they aren't. It's a front. And I've never been afraid to call that out. Me and President Vidia even had a quick conversation on a meeting that happened in January when they wanted to talk about what happened at the Capitol building, when we had things going on our campus that needed to be handled. And yes, I respect his position, but I had to challenge that thought, because I know that what was important for our students at that time is what is happening on our campus, and that is happening to us personally, not what's happening a couple miles away, 1,000 miles away, that happened a month before. So I've challenged, I've been there, I do it. I love talking to my administration and faculty, and challenges always come, but that's why we work together to compromise.
Thank you. We've run out of time on that question, so we'll keep moving on. This question is from Sam H. What support will you offer for LGBTQ students? I know some of you have touched on it, but if you can touch on it again, briefly. We'll start with Kanan this time.
Yeah, so I can take this one if that's fine, unless it was for Aaliyah specifically. But like I mentioned, on these offices and these safe spaces for these marginalized communities are understaffed, underfunded. So we want to just be able to provide these resources to these communities. And as far as the LGBTQ plus community goes, it's all about just promoting allyship, promoting a safe space on campus, and really hearing their needs, finding out the issues that they face that Aaliyah and I may not be aware of. So we really just want to work with them and help provide for them based on the things they bring to us. Because being an SGA, this isn't about necessarily what Aaliyah and I's ideas are. It's about what the student body's ideas are and how we can best implement them.
Okay, we run out of time on that one, so we'll move on to Coates and Noel.
Yeah, definitely. Supporting those groups is about being an ally and proving that the Student Government Association at NKU as a whole is an ally. And there are things we can do. We can hear their perspectives, hear the things that they want us to do on campus, hear what they need, and also support what they do, promote their events and attend their events and things of that nature. There are things that we can do to show our support more than we do currently.
We also just kind of want to get away from the idea that the LGBTQ plus programs and services offices is the only resource that exists for members of that community, because any office that exists for any NKU student also exists to serve them. So whether that be partnering with financial aid to help ensure that people are being able to afford their education and safe places to live, or career services so they have access to good opportunities, or different health and wellness options so they're receiving the proper mental health and counseling that they need. Because all of these different offices are for all of the students, not just specific offices.
Thank you. Aaliyah, you can have your rebuttal, but keep it quick.
Okay, I'm sorry. So I lost my train of thought. So with that being said, I understand what you're saying, that it's very inclusive and we want to make sure that all of our students know that all resources are for them. But the other part is diversity. And it seems like everyone always wants to push us together. So how are you all going to make sure that they still have individualized resources for their community? Because that's what they're asking. And that is what's the important piece.
Ensuring that these specific organizations do have all the necessary funding and support in place for the students is absolutely crucial to providing support to students. I was just getting at the fact that there are more than one different organizations in place for students to reach out to and rely on when they do need help. But of course, like, these individualized organizations need all the funding and support as any other organization.
Okay, thank you. As we continue, I do want to remind you all of the time constraints as we are getting closer to the 9 o'clock time. In order to give you guys some time for your closing rebuttals, reminder that rebuttals will now be 15 seconds and that each slate will have 1 minute between the two of you to answer the question. And so just keep that in mind as you continue, but we'll go on to the next question from Emily M. So how does Coates plan to ensure attendance at biweekly service projects when SGA can barely get people to come to their events or join the organization?
This is a great question, and I'm absolutely happy to address this. How we plan to get attendance at these events is by involving as many organizations as possible and really getting people who are invested in making change, and simply by involving as many organizations as possible and having it be a widespread idea on campus, hopefully is something people are excited about. If almost every single organization on campus is involved in its planning and plans on being there, it's something that people are going to be want to be a part of. It's absolutely not limited to SGA. And that's the point, is that we want SGA to branch out and be interconnected with these other organizations and be something that can put on events that are for every student and just really have a place for students to come together and serve together.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the next question. This one's also for Coates. This one's from Russ G. And so for Coates, how can the students be sure that there will be no conflict of interest or interference with the election, since you are friends with the current Chief Justice, TJ Cleary?
So people can be sure there's no interference with the election because I have faith in all members of SGA that they do their jobs regardless of personal relationships, and other people should too. For example, if the impeachment proceeding would have been heard by the justices and it would have been necessary for Chief Justice Clear to not be a part of that conversation, then that's what would have need to happen. I'm not sure exactly how to address the questions. I'm not sure how the election would be tampered with. Um, but if you would like more details, I can work on that for you.
Okay, I think you'll be fine. You're fine with me. And so moving on to the next question, this is from Alexandra N. How are we going to ensure that we are an inclusive community? And what does inclusivity and embracing diversity look like to you? We can start with Aaliyah and Chris this time.
Okay, thank you. Embracing diversity means embracing individuals from every walk of life for everything that they are, and not trying to correct them and put them in a box to make them feel like they have to conform to this PWI. And I personally, as a Black woman on this campus, have had to do this every day of my life at NKU. I have never really been able to be authentically me. Like, I have to put on a mask. And it's tiring to put on a mask every day. I know what that feels like. When you walk in a space, you have to make sure you're not too loud, your hair is in the right place, or they're gonna judge you, they're gonna say this. And we want to break that chain. We're going to break it by making it understood that you can be yourself and still be professional and still carry your weight. Let's be honest, I have about 10,000 tattoos and y'all know this, but I do what I do because I want people to see that you can be professional, you can be a leader, and you can be a change agent and still be you. The people love you being you. And that's what our university needs to do.
And real quickly, there was a quote in our article with a Northerner that Aaliyah said, if you do not have a seat at the table, we will pull one up for you. And I will live and die by that saying.
Thank you. Jackson and Rebecca?
So again, it all starts with collaboration and having input. And so when it comes to specifically diversity in that way, it's just about hearing everything. I mean, there's no limitation. If people have issues they bring to you, it's something that you need to hear and make sure that those groups know that they're being heard. And I think something that'd be really important for us to have at meeting is, again, hearing what comes through the suggestion box, what comes through representatives, and making sure that that goes to the body and to administration, and just making that link between us and the body and the administration just crystal clear that that we're here to serve in any way necessary.
Rebecca, you have time to answer if you would like to.
Okay, so in addition to what Jackson said, I think it's just really important that we make our presence known across campus so that people know that everyone and anyone who wants to come to meeting, who wants to be involved, is welcome, and they will be listened to, and they will have any opportunity to come and to be as involved as they want to.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the next question. We'll start with Coates and Noel this time. How will you try to, this is from Peyton H, sorry. How will you try to make campus feel safer, especially at the dorms?
So safety is obviously really important to us. One specific issue that we're aware of on campus is the lack of lighting in a lot of areas. And I guess that's referring to specifically campus light. It's been voiced to us that that's an issue. And that's something we want to work with the university on. And as far as safety in dorms, there are things that we can look at, and whether it be needing an all card to get into specific halls. I personally have lived in Callahan, and those things are available, but at least when I lived there, not utilized. Obviously, that's something we can look into, among other things. Rebecca, I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
Yeah, so there's like two levels to safety with students living on campus. There's like safety of the physical structure that they are in, and there's the safety of the community that they are in. And so we need to get to the heart of both of these issues by making sure that our facilities are upkept and that they are as secure as they possibly can be, and making sure that our communities are as inclusive and welcoming and understanding as possible.
Thank you. Cannon and Rope.
Thank you. So as an RA, I'm gonna give y'all a little perspective from my background. Dr. Eddie Howard is putting in a lot of work, and I know that he's about to make some big changes. Now, as a student, those changes are like, dang, I don't know if I'm feeling that. But as someone who is concerned about our safety, we do not have people at the desk around the clock making sure that things are running smoothly and that our students are safe. We also don't have a check-in system. So anyone can come on our university at any point in time. Now, if they come on, that's cool. But let us get your ID. Let us know that you're here so we know that if anything happens, we know our residents and our students are safe. Because personally, I struggled as a freshman having my name on the door because from my background and where I am from, you do not let people know where you live because then people will come to your house and that's not a good thing. So I would take my name off my doors until I realized, okay, this is normal. This is a safe space. But how do we really stop people from coming to our campus? That's why we need to implement things like this. I'm not saying they're the funnest or they're the best, but that's what we need.
And so we'll be moving on really quickly. Sorry about that, Chris. We ran out of time on that one. But moving forward, this question is from Peyton H. How do you plan on repairing relationships with students and organizations that have been damaged as a result of the previous administrations? We can start with Aaliyah and Chris this time.
Yeah, so I would like to start off with this. I know recently a lot of senators and or e-board members have resigned their positions. You all came to SGA for a reason. You all ran and applied to SGA for a reason. And it's awful that you did not feel heard. You did not feel seen. You felt belittled. But we encourage you that if we win, we want you to apply. We want you to try to get back in SGA and be the change agents that you long to be when you first wanted to go for the position.
And I do apologize on behalf of SGA. We do apologize. I'm sorry that those relationships have been broken, but also our leadership is not the past leadership. And we are here for a new slate to come open arms. And we just want to welcome you in and let you know that we're here to support you. And I got your back. We got your back.
Okay, thank you, Jackson and Rebecca.
So obviously SGA has something to prove to organizations and individuals that have been specifically hurt by SGA and to the student body who has lost faith in the organization. We plan to do that by displaying the new culture that we'll have in SGA and by showing individuals in the student body that we're dedicated to change and we're ready to make things happen. As I've said before, a lot of empty promises get thrown around, and we definitely hope to restore faith in SGA by fulfilling the things that we've promised to do within the year span of promising to do them.
It's also important that if we do take office, when that new year comes around, we make it clear that there is the distinction between the new administration and the previous administration. And that even though there is that separation, we still fully accept everything that goes along with being in SGA and all of those broken relationships that we will need to work very hard in order to repair.
Thank you. Moving on to the next question. This one is from Allison H, specifically for Colton Knoll. You mentioned having students come into meetings to voice their concerns, but some may feel uncomfortable voicing their struggles to people not in their identities out of fear they may not listen or understand. How do you plan to encourage students to voice their opinion or change the disconnect between the student body and SGA specifically?
So we want to make it clear when we meet with organizations that they're welcome to send representatives and that we're obviously open and willing to hear what they have to say. And unfortunately, if this is a bridge that we can't repair, that's why we want the anonymous option for students to voice their concern to us. We want to do whatever we can to make it clear to students that they can trust us with their input and that we value their input. But at the end of the day, it's important to us to have an anonymous way to communicate with SGA if students still don't feel comfortable doing that. And hopefully, if we're able to take their anonymous feedback and turn it into something, then we can restore that faith within them that we're serious about making change for them.
We also want to advertise that if students are not comfortable coming to a meeting as a whole, there is a smaller scale option. The president and the vice president have office hours. They are in the SGA office every single week where students can come and they can talk to them and they can voice their concerns.
Okay. Chris, you have your hand up for rebuttal.
Yes. Just again, bringing it up, you say you want input, you want to listen to students' input. 40 plus students came to a meeting and gave you their input, and you voted against their input. And that is all I have.
Would you like to respond to that really quickly?
Yeah, again, the impeachment was strictly an issue of constitutional infringement. Do I like the fact that students are not happy with the current administration? No. Do I think the current administration should have done better? Yes. Do I think the current administration should listen to feedback from students? Absolutely. But as I said before, the precedent that is set in voting yes in an impeachment when there is no constitutional infringement is a dangerous precedent to set.
Okay. We're going to move on. Sorry about that, Aaliyah. We just want to keep the time going. This question is for the presidential candidates, so candidate Coates. In your time this is from Ronald D. So in your time in the Senate, what have you done to reach out to various student groups on campus? We can start with Cannon.
Thank you so much. So I've been partnering a lot with the African American Student Initiatives office and making sure that we're actually being represented and understood in SGA. We have had numerous of Black individuals join the SGA, which is amazing. But right now we are actually working on creating an event in early April where we will be partnering with the office to basically hold an informational session and give that support to our students to where they know how to join, what they can do, and how their voices can be heard. Because sometimes having that big open meeting is okay and cool, but if they don't feel supported in the first place, why do we expect them to come and learn about our organization? Therefore, instead of having a Dropbox or asking them to come to the meetings, we're going to go to them and actually ask them their concerns and make those changes.
Okay. Jackson, you're next.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, I can. Just one quick second, I'm sorry. So in your time in the Senate, what have you done to reach out to various student groups on campus?
Sure. So in the specifically academics committee, a lot of my work has been to reaching out to different disciplines and majors on campus, because obviously the resolution I was working on was for biology majors in particular, and I am a biology major, but that's not been the limitation of my outreach. I've also been talking with other majors and just kind of having a sense out there for things that they may need done in the future. And so, you know, changes that I can make is not limited to the college that I'm in, and hopefully we can have some things come to light that I can pursue at a later date.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the next question. This is from Ray A. So how do you plan to be allies to marginalized communities you are not a part of? We can start with Coates and Knoll this time.
So again, it's just having open ears and an open heart to feedback, and knowing as not part of a group that it's not your place to make decisions directly or make judgments or anything of that nature. It's about really listening and hearing what they have to say and thinking about what can you do to turn that into tangible action for those groups.
And it's also about when the situation arises, reaching out to those groups who that does affect and asking them questions, communicating with them, seeing what we can best do to serve them in ways that they want us to act for them.
Okay, thank you. Cannon Rope.
Yes, thank you. As a Black woman, I'm sick and tired of people asking me to come tell them how they can make change and what they can do for me. Come and ask me, come and learn, educate yourself, be an ally, and indulge yourself in the actual community. And that's what we will do, because I know what it feels like to always be asked by white voices, what's wrong? What do you need from me? But then to never see change. Chris.
Yeah, and just going along with that, it's not empty promises. It's not empty words. Your actions speak louder than words. And when you are in these situations with these marginalized communities and having this dialogue, having these talks, hearing the concerns, it's about actually going forward and doing something about it. It's not about saying, oh, we'll look at it. Oh, we promised to do this. Oh, okay, I'll get back to you on that. It's about taking action immediately, taking what they say to heart and doing something about it. Like I said, I came from a predominantly white upper middle class high school. I lack a lot of experience with certain minority communities. I have some blind spots. I'm doing what I can to educate myself. I'm not waiting to be educated so I can be the best ally that I can. And that is a culture that we need to promote all around campus.
Thank you. Aaliyah, you have a rebuttal? Keep it quick.
Okay, thank you. I was just gonna ask Coach, are you allies to any marginalized or minority communities? Which ones are those and how are you an ally?
So are you asking if in terms of attending events and things of that nature, or just allyship in general?
Allyship in general, but that is included in allyship.
Sure. So any group on campus, any marginalized group should know that they could come to our administration and expect us to really listen and hear and not talk over them in any way, and really take what they have to say to heart and turn it into action. And so, we're allies to any marginalized group on campus in that way of just being willing to listen and take things that people say to heart and just turning it into action.
Okay. Thank you. We'll move on to the next question. It is from Cameron M. So what does each campaign think the best struggle that they will be taking on once they are elected, and how will you handle these challenges? We can start with, what do we start? We can start with Cannon and Rote this time.
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Yes. So what does each campaign think the biggest struggle that they will be taking on once they are elected, and how will you handle these challenges?
The biggest struggle I personally believe that I will be taking on is being a minority and marginalized member in a large leadership position on this campus, because I'm not only fighting for our students, but I have to fight for that seat at the table too, because my voice will automatically be silenced or pushed to the side because of my race and ethnicity. And I experience that every day in my life. That is the only adversity that I see myself facing, but I face it on a regular basis, so it won't be that hard.
And like I said earlier, for me personally, my biggest adversity that I will face will probably be my experience. I'm not, I don't know the SGA bylaws and constitution on the back of my hand, but I am a lifelong learner. I have the resources I need. I have the people that I need that have that experience, that have offered to lend me that helping hand and want to see me thrive in this position.
Okay, thank you. Coates and Noel.
So I think a primary obstacle for our administration would be regaining the trust of marginalized groups as well as campus as a whole. Because obviously SGA has done a pretty poor job of serving the student body up until this point, to the extent that a lot of people have stopped believing in its ability to work. And through our receptiveness and willingness to reach out to hear from everyone on campus, we hope that we can turn those things into changes and restore the faith of the student body in SGA.
There are many different minority groups on campus that Jackson and I are not direct members of. But just because we do not experience those struggles every day doesn't mean that we don't want to work for those people to help alleviate some of those struggles. And we still want to be able to engage in dialogue with people and listen to them and do what we can to best serve all students, regardless of our own groups and those who we most directly identify with.
Aaliyah, you can have a quick rebuttal.
Thank you. Just a quick note, as a minority, we don't want you to work for us. We want you to put us in spaces on platforms where we can advocate and work for ourselves.
Okay, do you have a rebuttal for that? If not, we're good. Okay, so this will be the final question, and so I do want to thank our audience for watching. We did have to cut a lot of questions for time constraints, but I believe that we have had a really productive night here. So this will be our final question, and then we can go into our closing statements from the candidates. This question is from Christopher P. What is one key idea or initiative mentioned from your opponent that you admire or agree on, and how could you support that initiative if you were elected? We can start with, I believe, Coates and Noel this time.
So we definitely really appreciate it's the keystone of their campaign of amplifying voices, unheard voices to be understood, right? And we think that's absolutely a worthwhile thing. And our campaign includes things about that as well, that if we were to be elected, that's something we absolutely want to see come to fruition. And that looks like reaching out to groups and giving groups avenues to have input in SGA, and really taking those suggestions to heart and really putting them into action is certainly something admirable about the other campaign that we would hope to embody if we were to be elected.
Going along with that, I just wanted to recognize the work that Senator Cannon has done in her time at SGA in already trying to work with those groups and get those voices heard that are not necessarily given the space to be understood. And the work that she's done like up until this point is incredible. And I just wanted to take a minute to recognize that.
Okay, thank you, Kristen or Cannon and Rope.
Thank you. I appreciate that compliment. I've been making change since day one at NKU. But with that being said, really the sustainability part, I love that piece, and I understand that I personally lack knowledge about it, and I'm really interested in growing and learning about it, and our leadership is as well. So we're going to work hand in hand with the Sunrise Movement, with different organizations on campus that have their passion poured into sustainability and being green, because that is something they're passionate about, and putting them in spaces and on platforms that will be able to make it a better university. Because I'm not going to get up and talk about being green and sustainability, and that's not my passion yet. That's not what I am most knowledgeable about. So I'm gonna put those individuals in the places to really show the crowd what we're here for, what we're gonna do, and how that change will happen. So I'm gonna need y'all to be looking out for some positions, okay?
Chris, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, just the passion, just the sheer passion for NKU. We all share it. We're all doing this because we love NKU. It's very admirable. And as far as any specific point goes, it's just about building that building empathy, a community of empathy on campus where we can feel for each other and support one another.
Okay, so thank you guys again for being here. We will have 1 minute for each slate to take for their closing statements. And so since we started with Cannon and Rote at the beginning, we will close with Coates and Knoll this time. So you guys have the first statement.
All right. So again, we just wanted to thank everyone for being here and just really emphasize that in our platform, if you were to go to our social media at Coates Knoll SGA 2021, you could sit down and make a checklist of the things we're going to get done for you, and you should expect to see them completed. In today's realm of politics, you never know what percentage of someone's campaign they're going to achieve. And we want the student body to be confident that we intend our percentage to be 100%, because everything we've laid out is tangible and has steps to get there, and we plan to get it done.
We want to spend the next year constantly earning your trust and proving that we will do the work that is necessary to be in these positions. And we hope that you trust us to make SGA every student's government.
Am I good to go?
Yes, you're good.
All right. So I do want to start by apologizing, as I am aware that earlier I made a comment where I said he, she in reference to a group of people. I do want to apologize to our trans and non-binary community for accidentally excluding you in that statement that I made. But going forward, we all want a better NKU together. We all want to work together and build together, because this is our school. This isn't the administration school. We are students of Northern Kentucky University, and we want to work together to create a better NKU. And if you elect us, I can promise you that is going to happen. My personal belief is that as a community, when we work together, arm in arm, hand in hand, there is absolutely nothing that we cannot accomplish together. Everyone says they want change. The change is here, and the change's name is Aaliyah Cannon. Thank you.
Okay, Aaliyah, you have about like 10 seconds. You good?
Oh no, my VP got it right.
Okay, thank you. And so with that, the debate is finished. And so I do want to remind the audience, first off, I want to thank you for being here. This was a great night. I'm proud of the work that we put in here, and I'm proud of the candidates and what they've said tonight. And so just a reminder, our SGA elections are March 24th and 25th. And you can vote on MyEngagement. And so for more SGA coverage, as always, visit thenortherner.com and follow us on all our social medias at Northerner Media, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, everything like that. And as always, thank you again, and thank you to the candidates. You guys
Thank
have a
you
good
for
night.
putting this together. We really do appreciate it.
No problem. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. So the live is now closed, but thank you guys.
Bye. See you later.
Thank you.